This spreadsheet tracks the recent theatrical returns for Marvel Studios, and the math tells a brutal story. 5 of their last 6 theatrical releases. The threshold line represents the 8.5 cents on every dollar Disney pays to fund its operations. With the studio's returns sinking below that line, they are currently spending more to make content than that content brings back. By the strictest definition used on Wall Street, the studio is destroying shareholder value. The entertainment press tries to explain these deficits away with the phrase superhero fatigue. Yet audiences watched Deadpool and Wolverine gross over $1.3 billion globally, just months before other projects opened to empty theaters. The data shows the audience has plenty of interest left for the genre. They have simply realized the corporate machine they trusted spent the last 5 years breaking its own product. To understand how the system broke, we have to look at how it was built. In 2009, consumer confidence was at a generational low. Despite the collapsing economy, Disney CEO Bob Iger authorized a $4 billion acquisition of Marvel Entertainment. He wasn't targeting the films Marvel had already made. He purchased the untapped rights to 5,000 characters. That intellectual property fed a self-sustaining business system known as a flywheel. A film earns box office revenue, which drives retail merchandise sales, which motivates families to visit the theme parks. The profits from the parks then flow right back to fund the next massive theatrical production. With that closed loop spinning, Disney eventually commanded between 33% and 40% of the entire domestic box office in the year before Endgame. One single company controlled nearly a third of all movie tickets sold. This loop functioned on a precise psychological mechanism. By carefully spacing out releases and maintaining strict quality control, Marvel trained an entire generation of moviegoers that paying close attention and showing up on opening weekend would always be rewarded. Then, in 2020, the macroeconomic environment shifted entirely. The Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to zero. Capital was suddenly free to borrow. With the open floodgates of zero-interest capital, Wall Street stopped demanding immediate profitability. Investors rewarded one metric above all else: aggressive user acquisition for streaming. To feed that growth mandate for Disney+, CEO Bob Chapek turned their most prized asset into a production line. In 2021 alone, leadership pushed out 9 separate Marvel projects, 4 theatrical films, and 5 television series. This production pace triggered the economic law of diminishing marginal utility. The more supply you force into a market, the less value each unit holds. The first movie of the year is an event. The 4th television series of the year is just background static. Disney successfully captured millions of new streaming subscribers to hit their financial targets. By converting their most valuable asset into mandatory viewing assignments, they diluted the brand to the point of complete apathy. Behind those subscriber charts is a harsh operational reality. Marvel Studios does not rely on a massive in-house visual effects department. The aesthetic of the cinematic universe is outsourced to third-party vendor studios across the globe. Because the prestige of working on these films was commercially valuable, the studios systematically pitted vendors against each other. VFX houses repeatedly accepted contracts at a financial loss just to secure the portfolio credit. Once the cheapest price was locked in, executives would enforce a grueling practice known internally by a dark industry term: pixel fucking. They demanded foundational, from-scratch redesigns of entire battle sequences just weeks before an immovable worldwide premiere date. The visual drop-off audiences noticed, the floating heads and cheap lighting, was the direct result of supervisors pulling 17-hour days on consecutive sleepless nights. This production pipeline, overseen for years by executives like Victoria Alonso, pushed the workforce to total physical exhaustion. By August 2023, the pressure broke the system. Marvel's in-house visual effects employees organized and cast a unanimous vote to unionize, finally securing their first-ever collective bargaining agreement. These digital artists were structurally invisible, yet operationally essential. The studio leveraged their unprotected labor to build the most profitable aesthetic in film history. Marvel's corporate response to the unionization was swift. In early 2024, they executed sweeping job cuts across the board, dissolving the foundational visual development team that spent 16 years building the universe's aesthetic vocabulary. They replaced that institutional memory with proprietary AI generation tools. To cut costs early in the pipeline, management traded human pre-production infrastructure for automated storyboarding and AI-curated reference material. As Marvel hollows out its process, competitors are moving in. Warner Bros. Discovery hired James Gunn to rebuild DC Studios, using the exact playbook Marvel abandoned: director-driven projects, slow development cycles, and strict quality gates before a camera ever rolls. Slashing the visual development budget amputates the coherent design language that makes these films feel like they belong to a single, believable universe. Studio leadership is now attempting to correct course. They are reverting to a restricted release schedule to manufacture scarcity again, while planning a massive narrative reset for the entire franchise. They hired Robert Downey Jr. to return as the villain to buy back the audience's attention. This is a calculated 9-figure financial maneuver, a floor guarantee designed to automatically generate hundreds of millions in opening weekend ticket sales. They are leaning on massive star power and directors of past successes to compensate for the fact that they dismantled the pre-production engine those very filmmakers need. Nostalgia will sell tickets on a Friday night. It will not finish a script, give VFX artists the time they need to render a scene, or even repair a broken production pipeline. During their decade of dominance, Marvel built genuine trust through consistent craft. Their fatal error was assuming the audience was loyal to the studio logo rather than the people executing the work. Every monopoly that achieves this level of scale eventually faces the same choice. When you prioritize aggressive, debt-fueled growth over structural discipline, you erode the very product that made you dominant. Next week on Strategy Lens, we look at a company that almost didn't survive its own catastrophic miscalculation. In 1959, a failing German manufacturer was exactly 3 weeks away from total bankruptcy and liquidation. We are going to break down the exact economics, the boardroom decisions, and the one family gamble that transformed a dying regional factory into the $60 billion global empire known as BMW. Subscribe, and I'll see you then.